Yo, peace to the planet Earth. This is your boy Dees, man. You know what I mean? And we have a dope show for you today. But I literally just found out that DMX actually passed. And I had actually originally intended to do a show strictly about DMX anyway, when I first found out that he got sick. Then there was, people thought he had passed when he hadn't. Now apparently the brother has passed away, and we're gonna do a show, you know. I just want to tell you that, I know other people like, well, you were talking about doing the MF Doom show and you haven't done it. And the reason I haven't done an MF Doom show is because I like to do things right. I'm not going to be the first person to break news. You're rarely, if ever, going to get breaking news from Bishop Chronicles, but you will always get real news. And I'm not going to do the show until I'm giving you new information and getting you some new perspectives that aren't already out there. All right. So I have a couple people lined up to be guests. In some ways, I've been thinking about combining the shows. But I'm still working on them. You know what I'm saying? But, sometimes I think, people have all these ideas about who artists are. They don't really know the demons that they deal with. They think that they have a right to post stuff about them and say stuff about anybody. And I guess, like, technically that's true, especially coming from America. Like, I believe in free speech, right? But one of my old teachers said, everybody wants to talk about rights, but nobody wants to talk about responsibility. He didn't come up with that idea, but when you look at social media, TikTok, what's happening on IG and Twitter, man, like, we got rights, but we're not being responsible. What is your responsibility to an MC who gave so much? What is your responsibility to an artist who collapsed through addiction, right? Who came from one of the deadliest eras that ever existed in American street stuff, with the crack and the crime and the guns and the abuse. You know what I'm saying? We need to start thinking like that, man. DMX, I never met you. I got to give you so much respect and gratitude for so much that you've given to hip hop. And I know that you endured a lot that would have broke a lot of people a long time ago. And Bishop Chronicles will do your memory justice, I promise. All right, now about to jump into this really sick thing on hip hop, comics, NFTs. It's going to be crazy. Talk soon. Many blessings. Worldwide West Side.
Teacher, what style is that? It's my own secret technique. Bishop Chronicles. Bishop Chronicles. What's it called?
Checkmate, sucker, now the move game's over.
What's it called?
Adisa the Bishop. Man, that's right.
What's it called?
Certainly the black Ron Burgundy.
It's my own secret technique. Bishop Chronicles.
Peace to the planet Earth. You know what it is. Adisa the Bishop of hip hop. You know what I'm saying? The black Ron Burgundy of the hood. I'm out here. You know what I'm saying? And I'm chilling with my man, Shawn Crystal of Inkpulp. Like, he's like a cartoonist, podcaster, inward journeyman. You know what I'm saying? Like all kind of stuff going on. You know what I mean? So we're going to talk about hip hop, and we're going to talk about comics today. We're going to talk about like how that history, as we remember it, came about. And, he's an incredible artist. When I say incredible, I really mean incredible. Plus, we're going to be talking about NFTs. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of like the Bitcoin path of artistry right now. And I'll remind me to tell you my my Bitcoin story, because it ends in tragedy.
Okay. Oh no!
But
Did you lose your password, your digital
man?
wallet?
No, it's worse than that. It's worse than that.
All right.
So, man, welcome to Bishop Chronicles, man. We got connected through Mike Realm, you know what I'm saying? And,
yes.
Shout out to Mike. He always knows cool people. And then me and you talked like once or twice, and we hit it hard off the bat, man. But for those that don't know about what you do and why you do it, and I'm saying he's awesome, like, tell people, who you are and what you do, player.
All right. So my name is Shawn Crystal. Like you said, all my online stuff is Inkpulp. That's my business, my art business. And I've worked in comics for like the past 15 or so years. Worked for Marvel, worked for DC primarily, both of those companies. I've worked for other companies like Dark Horse and Boom and Oni as well.
I'm in love with Dark Horse just because of Usagi.
Yeah. Oh man, I got good stories about Stan.
Dude, you gotta tell me, I am uncommonly like a complete nerd about everything dealing with Yojimbo off top.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Stan. So I used to teach. I built and ran the comic book department at SCAD, which is Savannah College of Art and Design in the Atlanta campus. My friend Pat Quinn and I were hired to create the program for the Atlanta campus. And shortly after we started teaching there, Pat got bumped up to dean, and then the department was just on me. So
Wow.
I taught every class in it, and I would have these twice a year events, one where we'd bring in editors to
Mhm.
review student work and give lectures, and then one where we bring in artists to do the same.
Mhm.
So I had Stan come in once, and he's just the sweetest, nicest.
He seems like he's so
dude.
nice.
He is the
I,
nicest man.
I have a statue that I bought for my son of Katsuichi holding Usagi on his shoulders.
Oh, nice.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
like that statue is like a family thing. You know what I mean? Like
That's
I love
awesome.
Stan Sakai's work. And I also really love his artistic rendition of the 47 Ronin. That's
Yeah.
like my favorite. My favorite like graphic novel kind of thing, adaptation from like real history. You know what I mean? And like I love it so much, man. So much.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Stan's an absolute sweetheart and a real like real journeyman in comics. And you know that I think it's Netflix. It has the Usagi cartoon in development now.
Don't make me cry on this show. Do not make me cry on this show, dude.
I'm pretty sure it's Netflix, but yeah, he's got a cartoon in development.
Wow. That is beautiful, man. I can't wait to see it. I absolutely cannot wait to see it.
I know,
that.
me too. Me too.
Now, you know, when I think about hip hop and comics, you know, ironically, I did one of the first articles on hip hop and comics in the source. There was a Black Comic Book Expo that happened in San Francisco at a museum, and I think it was 1993. It might have been 92. It might have been 92, and I did this story. At the time, there was a comic out of LA. I think it was LA. It was called Brother Man. I don't know if you remember Brother Man. That was a short-lived cartoon, but he had a 6 series. And then there was what other comics were a part of that event. So I covered that. And that's kind of how my actual introduction. Now, truth be told, I'm not the biggest comic head. The only comic / graphic novel I ever really collected was Usagi. Was it?
Okay.
The only other one outside of that was, do you remember or do you recall this comic that came out, I think like 2012, maybe 2014? It was called Genius. It was about a girl.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
It came out of something cow.
Top Cow, yes.
Yeah, Top Cow,
yeah,
right? And so she was like a genius who was like a chess player / like military strategist. And like there was like this police shooting, and then the people were fighting the cops, and she was actually the one like organizing the rebellion. But she was just like this 13-year-old girl who was a genius.
Okay.
And she was kind of like forgotten by the system. And it was kind of about what happens when the system forgets a child and they come back for revenge. It was such a sick like that needs to be a movie. But like, what do you remember? What do you remember? You know, first talk to me about your initial love for comics and hip hop, and then how and where did you see those worlds blending? I'm interested to know.
All right. So comics, I was a kid and I would get up on Saturday mornings just to watch the Spider-Man cartoon. And I'm talking about the original 70s Spider-Man cartoon with the theme song and everything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. So
where are you from originally? Just because I know you're in ATL right now, but where are you from?
Right. So I was born up in North Jersey. My whole family's Bayside, Queens, New York. I lived in Jersey.
Queens.
Yep. Lived in Jersey and Queens as a baby, and then we moved down to Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And eventually settled in the suburbs outside of Washington in Columbia, Maryland, and that's where I spent most of my childhood.
Wow.
But all of our family reunions and all of our holidays were us going up to New York, to Queens for that. So I was up there all the time, and like feeling those roots in New York.
I got allergies. I'm just saying.
I got them too, man. Too.
You probably got them worse being in Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta's brutal. I've started to kind of adapt and adjust, but when I moved down here, that was the first time I ever felt like I was wheezing, like having trouble breathing. I'd never felt that before. But everything's covered in pollen right now, like yellow.
So do you get like the local honey? Because everybody says the local honey is the deal.
I do.
That helps? You believe in that?
I do. I believe in that. And I also do neti pots regularly because I was getting sinus infections like
dude, I've had some
multiple times a year.
Infections. Yeah.
And when I started doing a neti pot regularly, I haven't had a sinus infection in like 10 years now.
Dang. All right. Well,
Changed
all
everything.
right. So you were going back and forth between like outside of DC and Queens, right?
Right. So as a kid, I loved that Spider-Man cartoon and I loved to draw. So I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to draw cartoons of Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And I was never really exposed to comics. And then when I was about 15, which is late for getting into comics, I was in high school and a buddy of mine saw me drawing, or a classmate, I shouldn't even say buddy. And he was like, yo, I got something for you. And he brought in this book called The Dark Knight Returns, which was this seminal piece of comic work. It was a Batman story done by Frank Miller, set in an imagined future where Batman had been retired. And because of that, he just had so much creative freedom in what he could do with the story. And I read that and I was like, I didn't know comics could be like this. It was really dark. It was really mature. And I was an avid novel reader and I really liked Stephen King. And on the back of this comic book was a pull quote from Stephen King.
No kidding.
Yeah, I was like, how this must be good if Stephen King's raving about it. And he was raving about it.
Right.
So I read it, was like, holy shit, I didn't even realize comics could be like this. And at the time I was like, I love movies because I was starting to study how like movies worked in terms of storytelling. And I love drawing. Right. I was like, how can I combine these two? And after reading that, I was like, oh, this is it. It's right here. So then I did a deep dive. Now rewind when I was about, man, what year did Beat Street come out? I don't even
84.
know. Yeah, something like
80,
that.
45.
So, Beat Street fucked me up real good. I was like, Run DMC was out, and I was really into it, and I was digging it, but there wasn't a lot of hip hop around that I could dig into.
I'm gonna look up when this thing came out because it's killing me right now. Continue.
Okay. And so I saw Beat Street, like I saw Breakin', of course, but Beat Street was the first time. First off, Beat Street felt like it was a more realistic portrait of hip hop, of the world of hip hop, of the world it comes from, whereas like Breakin' was like a fantasy.
Dude, Breakin' was horrible. That was a horrible film. 84. Yeah. 84.
Okay, yeah. So Beat Street felt real and felt good. It was a real story. But the other thing that really got me in there was, I mean, my friends and I were breakdancing. We were listening to hip hop, you know, Herbie Hancock's Rock.
Yeah.
And
I had that on a 45. My dad got that as a 45 for me as a gift.
Dude, I couldn't stop listening to that. And Africa Bambaataa and
crazy.
So I was getting into that. And then I saw Beat Street and they were in it. But the thing that really grabbed me was it covered all aspects of the culture. So it was the first time I saw a story about a graffiti artist.
Dude.
And being an artist.
Ramo.
Yeah, Ramo. R.I.P. Ramo.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. So I felt like I had a place in this world of hip hop. Like I liked breakdancing. I liked the music, but I wasn't great at breakdancing. It wasn't bad. I wasn't great. And then
I was a horrible dancer. Still am. Yeah.
But after seeing that, I was like, oh my God, I have a role to play in this now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that opened me up to the world of graffiti. And then I discovered a AM channel in DC, 1360 WEBB. and they would have a hip hop hour every
What? Who was the
Saturday, I think
DJ?
it was, and I would just record. Like I would
Yeah,
just
I was the
record.
same way. My grandmother was near a radio station called KPOO, and my parents would be like, "Oh, you want to stay at your grandma's?" I'd be like, "Yep," and I would take my boombox over there, and I forget what time in the afternoon on Saturdays or Sundays they would play, but I would hit record and go hoop. You know what I mean? And that was
Yep.
the best thing to listen to those shows later, man. That's so hilarious that you did the same stuff.
Yeah, but what it did was it exposed me to hip hop that nobody was hearing. So like I remember hearing Dana Dane's Nightmares, and that
Me too.
really
I
felt
have it on one of my.
Yep. Yep.
That
was the big one.
That
Yeah.
I got Jekyll and Hyde. You know what I mean? Like that stuff
Houdini.
was
I remember
pretty-
hearing Houdini on there. I remember hearing the fresh Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince when they first came out on there.
Crazy.
So I love that. Then I also discovered right after it they had a go-go show. So being near DC, I
Go-Go
enjoyed
was
that.
natural.
Yeah. That was awesome. So that really got me into hip hop and graffiti. And I got spray cans. I had a backpack of spray cans. My dad would buy me like plywood, like big sheets that I could marker
Yeah,
on
do your
all
pieces
day
on.
at
Yeah,
practice.
that's fresh.
And I started bombing this like middle upper class suburban neighborhood everywhere. And I was the only one doing it. And my friends would come along with me and bomb shit too. But one day my parents found my cans in my room, and it didn't take long for them to put 2 and 2 together.
And they were like, he's actually going out and doing stuff.
Yeah.
That
was the end of my spray can days. They were not happy. Hold on.
That is hilarious. That's so beautiful though. I mean,
yes.
we had very parallel kind of things. I didn't do so I was a tagger.
Okay.
I was not a bomber. I've never had the skills ever, and I never tried because I knew I didn't have it. But I could tag. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I was a bomber. I didn't do much tagging. I bombed.
That is so
like
sick.
I would plan them in my sketchbook, and then I'd go out and bomb. And my graffiti name was Spyro.
Yeah.
I just bombed Spyro everywhere. But so whenever we'd go to New York, like now that I was getting into this hip hop stuff, whenever we go to New York and we go to Queens, which is where Run DMC was from, I would go nuts, and I'd have my grandmother take me to like local record stores, and I'd buy vinyls,
just rack up on vinyl
and mixtapes and everything I could get my hands on from New
Now,
York.
what did your parents think of that? What did your grandma think of that? Because my dad was very supportive, actually. My father taught me how to scratch, but I think a year or two in, they were like, I don't know.
They were fine with it. I don't think they really paid attention to it in terms of what it was. They were just like, oh, he likes going to the record store. Because I was big into music always, even before my hip hop days.
Right.
You know, I was getting into metal and stuff. So
me too.
They were just like, that's just what Shawn likes. So I don't think they realized like what I was.
They didn't take too much stock of what it was.
No, and I don't know that they ever did, to tell you the truth. I mean, I remember like when NWA came out, and I was just cranking that. I think that was the first time they were like, what are you listening to? I was like, fuck the police, Dad.
Yeah, that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? That's hilarious. What was the first rap show that you went to that you remember going to?
Oh, shit.
Did you go to the Fresh Fest when they were out? I went to the Fresh Fest. That was
I was
Coliseum event.
Yeah, I wanted to go. I remember like EPMD was there, and they like. So let me rewind a little bit. So the kid that turned me on to the comics, and this was when I was 15. So I was really big into hip hop and rap,
right?
Like from like 84, you know, for a few years. And then I kind of kept my ear to it, but lost track of it, and then I started skateboarding and got really into punk rock and didn't know what was going on in the hip hop world.
Who did you listen to in the punk world?
Oh, dude, my favorite stuff. I mean, I was in DC, so it was Minor Threat, Bad Brains, and all that stuff. Loved it. But New York hardcore scene was my shit. Like Cro-Mags.
Yeah,
that Age of Quarrel record is still the one I've listened to the most and continue to listen to the most from that whole era.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the New York hardcore scene was my jam.
That is
And
beautiful.
so when we go to New York, I'd go to the record. I remember getting like AOD, like all these DRI records in New
Yeah.
York at the same shop I was getting hip hop stuff at later. But so hip hop, when I first got into it was like happy party music.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize it was going through this change while I was away from it. So
Right.
in that same classroom, there was this, he was like the captain of the football team, this big dude. And he would just watch me draw and we'd shoot the shit. And he'd be like, what do you listen to? And he was just all hip hop.
Yeah.
And I
At
was
that
all
time,
punk
it
rock.
was impossible not to be almost.
Right. So he said, look, make me a tape of what you like, and I'll make you a tape of what I like.
Don't you love those friends, bro?
Dude, this changed my life. This changed my life. And I'm going to tell you how. So I gave him a tape of everything we just talked about. DRI,
Right.
AOD,
Cro-Mags.
Cro-Mags, like everything was very socially motivated. It was educational, political, social justice. It was all this shit was in there.
Yeah.
And he gave me a tape of BDP, Public Enemy, EPMD, and some other shit.
He
and
dropped you right into the heart of it.
Yeah, but what killed me was it was the same shit. They were the same thing in a different sound.
It's so crazy, man. I felt the same way.
Yeah. So I went home and I listened to it. And that day I took my skateboard out and I graffitied again for the first time in I don't know how long. And I graffitied BDP on my skateboard and Public Enemy. And this is way before it was cool to be a skateboarder, and way before skateboarding and hip hop were even
had
thinking about
any
getting in bed together.
Yeah.
So people were like, all my skate punk friends are like, what the fuck is BDP? And now it's like, it's just the norm.
It's as everybody knows it. I remember I was into BMX racing back then.
Mhm.
So like, you know, there were places, because I'm from the burbs. So there were places in the burbs that people that it was like half nature, half made. There was this place called Rolling Wood Jumps, and you would go to Rolling Wood Jumps, and like it was just this weird place where it had like a path that took you to 3 big ass jumps off this hill. And like when I would get the BMX mags, everybody was listening to metal, right? It was Metallica,
Yes, exactly.
which I loved. I mean, I loved Ozzy. I listened to all of that because I was from the burbs. So that was what all the kids were playing, you know, AC/DC, Hell's Bells, you know what I'm saying? Led Zeppelin,
Yeah,
saying?
exactly.
Scorpions, you know what I'm saying? Blackout album, you know, all of that. But I remember one day someone wrote in, I'll never forget. I still have it somewhere, I think at my parents' house, where this person wrote in and they were like, yeah, it's cool that, you know, dudes are doing the ramps and everything and they're listening to metal, but they said, what about Dr. Dre and the World Class Wrecking Crew? Which like I was a fan of that back then. You know what I mean? I was surgery.
Right.
And like the response in the mag was like, that music sucks, bro. You know, and I was like, man, it's so aligned. But it's so funny that me and you had such a very similar path of
Totally.
So keep going though. Keep going. I'm blown away.
Yeah. So then I dove back because hip hop had changed, and it changed with me because I was listening to punk rock that was very message driven, as was the hip hop he exposed me to. So I fell in love with BDP, and KRS-One became, and this is right when By All Means Necessary dropped.
Man, what an album, huh?
Yeah, I still, it's one of my favorite hip hop albums of all time, and I still listen to it.
Can I ask you a question about specifically like that album and specifically about NWA?
Definitely.
One of the things that I feel like when I speak to young people about hip hop and hip hop history is I'm always trying to tell them, like, you know, because you were born at a time when it was already here, right? Like, it is impossible for me to explain what it meant to hear NWA in a planet where nothing else like it existed.
Right.
When you got like By All Means Necessary, man, like I remember that song, You Slippin'. I mean, dude,
I still know the whole album.
Hard.
Yeah, I know the whole album back to front, every verse, every lyric.
Come on, man.
I mean,
like,
KRS-One
how crazy
fucked me up.
was that album for you, right? Like, I just want to, like, can you share with the listeners what it meant to hear artists like Boogie Down Productions,
Yeah.
like NWA and Public Enemy in a planet where none of that existed. Can
Yeah,
you talk
so-
about the impact of that on you?
Absolutely. So I'll talk about each band. It was
Yeah.
3 that really got into my bloodstream. It was EPMD,
Mhm.
it was Public Enemy, and it
Mhm.
was Boogie Down Productions. And
Mhm.
out of them, Boogie Down Productions was the one that really fucked me up, because KRS-One, first off, I loved everything he was saying in the album as a whole.
Come on, man. The album
But
was-
he was dropping knowledge like I'd never heard. But he also had a command of the English language I hadn't heard in hip hop.
and
Like,
his voice
like
was
scholar.
so
Yes.
his voice was so
his voice was
everything.
it was so effortless, and it was conversational and commanding.
ridiculous.
And I had never heard a rapper like that.
No.
But what really got me was when I was like, KRS, like I listened to albums a few times, and then one time I realized KRS-One knowledge reigns supreme over nearly everyone. And I was like, this motherfucker is the most brilliant human being artist I've ever heard. I
Dude.
dedicate my life to this motherfucker.
He was light years ahead of everyone.
He
you know what I
still
mean?
is.
And in some
He
ways,
still
in many
is.
ways, still is, bro. Like artistically, crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He really is. You know what I mean? Like there's things about him as a person, you know, like me and him have had some issues, but like as an artist,
Yeah.
ridiculous, unprecedented. And no matter what I think of some of his ideas or whatever, or the Temple of Hip Hop, I have to say that as an artist, he's 1 in a billion, straight up.
No doubt. No
You know
doubt.
what I mean?
But he also
Like,
was an ambassador.
he's 1 in a billion.
And I hadn't
Right. And a
like,
pioneer.
Right. And I hadn't seen anyone really create or nurture this idea of hip hop culture. It existed, but I hadn't heard people really talk about it or try to find a way to rally it together into
And
an
help you
idea.
understand it, right?
Right,
And like
right.
this is a thing that we can go do, that we can
Right.
go be, that we can go see, that we can
Yes.
create.
And he talked about its purpose,
Mm-hmm.
which I hadn't heard before.
Mm-hmm.
And it got
Especially
me
with edutainment and that
yes,
stuff, right?
yes.
Crazy.
Oh, yep, exactly. So that was my public and my BDP experience, and I followed BDP to the ends of the earth until then KRS went solo, and then his first solo record, Return of the Boom Bap, I couldn't stop listening to, and the second solo record, just self-titled KRS-One, which is probably my favorite thing he's ever done.
Dude, that album was out of control.
Dude, that album was crazy. I mean, you got Premier on production. You got, he had guests from Fat Joe to Das Effects to Busta Rhymes.
Angie
Channel
Martinez.
Live.
Remember
Yeah,
Angie Martinez on that track? It's the Butter Pecan Rican. You wouldn't have like people say like J Lo is the Butter Pecan Rican. That whole
Right.
line came from Angie
Oh,
Martinez.
dude.
Gave that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. I mean, like, dude, and like my favorite track on there was the MC. Who am I? The MC.
yeah.
Lottie Dottie. Woo! Fire.
Yes.
Crazy. You know what I'm
So,
saying?
yeah, I was dedicated. I mean, when Jack of
You
Spades,
said I was dedicated.
when Jack of Spades came out, and then I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, I couldn't, like, I was like, this is the best. Like, this is the best ever.
Okay, you know what's weird? I
What?
can't lie, dude. I thought Jack of Spades was trash.
Oh my
I hated
God,
that
love
song.
Jack
Still
of
do.
Spades.
Like if
Oh.
people play that, I'm always like, like I know, like there are certain songs in hip hop that I know I respect that other people like them, but I hate them. That's one.
Yeah, I've seen you on Facebook do that. Talk about that. But look, I'm gonna fully admit I was such a fanboy for BDP. They could put out trash and I would have
And you'd be like, bomb. You know what I'm
exactly. So that was BDP. Then there was Public Enemy, and this was before It Takes a Nation of Millions.
my
This is my
God.
Uzi Weighs a Ton.
Come on, dude. I remember buying that single and taking it home, bro.
Mhm.
What up? Boom, boom, ah, boom,
Yep.
tap, boom, boom,
So
get
that
down.
was the first
Oh,
time
my God.
I was really made aware of the Black experience in America.
Yeah.
And I was learning from it, but it was Public Enemy had the raw power of New York hardcore that I was into. And I had never heard anything so dark and just powerful.
and unflinching,
Chuck-
like it
yeah.
knew it was that and didn't care.
Yes, it
And
knew
like,
exactly. Dude, the cover said it all.
Come
the cover to
on.
that first record, it was they
Come
were in
on.
pure darkness. And Terminator X's sound. I'd never
Come
heard
on,
anything
man.
like that. So,
was
and then I
crazy.
mean Chuck D, like what I liked about KRS, and then here's Chuck D, who's like a militant leader who's speaking with the confidence and command of like a sergeant. Like, I've
Dude,
never
it
heard
was
that
out of
before.
control, man. It was so, it's so crazy, the visuals of that album, the visuals of Public Enemy, the S1Ws,
Yeah.
the names like Terminator X and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you knew they were not like anybody else.
And
They
then
were
in the
not
middle
like
of it
anybody else.
all, there's Flavor Flav.
Come on, man.
And it was like this is something completely new. So
Unbelievable.
I got into Public Enemy, and then It Takes a Nation of Millions came out, and it was over. It was just over. Like Rebel Without a Pause, forget it. Over. Black Steel and the Hour of Chaos, like I was
What
done. I
in
was
the world?
done.
And then they had the audacity to drop the video for Black Steel and the Hour
Yes,
of
they
Chaos.
did. Yes, they did.
That's one of the best hip hop videos in the history of the game. Straight
No
up.
doubt. No
That I
doubt.
mean that was just bonkers. So how did that, okay, I'm gonna say how, I'm gonna ask, did any of that impact any aspect of how you drew, how you pursued art?
Absolutely.
Or were they siloed worlds for you?
No. They impacted me. Like I said, I mean, the first thing I did was I got back to graffiti and started graffitiing names of the bands on my skateboard. But then I was already in a socially conscious mode because of punk rock and hardcore. But so this just nurtured that more. And this is when I got into a period where I was exploring like social consciousness in art, and I was getting really into the idea of telling stories that dealt with social stuff. And like reading comics by Frank Miller, there were issues, like real social issues in there. So it definitely affected me on that level. But I have to talk about, because at the same time on that record,
Right,
which was a total 180 from what BDP and Public Enemy were, was EPMD. And this is
Eric and
strictly
Parrish
business.
were doing what? What were they doing?
Making dollars.
They were making dollars. Good Lord.
That out of all of it, my love for BDP, my love for Public Enemy, but EPMD's Strictly Business
Oh my God.
was just funk. And I could not stop listening to it. And to this day, Strictly Business is one of my most played records. It
And
holds
they
up.
weren't yelling, and that was weird.
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah.
it was like, everybody was in your face. Like KRS-One was in your face.
Yeah.
Run DMC, LL Cool J. LL Cool J is, and these dudes were just like, you know what I'm saying?
They were like melted butter in a cast iron skillet.
What was the first song that you remember hearing from them? Because I'll tell you mine. How
It
I
was Strictly
stumbled across
Business.
them.
It was on that
It
tape.
was-
It was
so
Strictly
that
Business.
was your intro.
I was
okay.
done.
So check it. On my whatever it had to be, I want to say my 17th birthday, my dad got me two 12-inch speakers, Pioneers, gigantic speakers for the house, right? Because I was a DJ, right?
Okay.
I went to the record store, bought my first CD, which was what the first CD I had was Kraftwerk. That the album that had Computer World on it. I think that was what it was called, right?
Yeah.
And then it had just come out, dude. It was Eric B. and Rakim's 7 Minutes of Madness.
Oh, dude.
Full remix. I hadn't even heard it. I just got it because I knew it was going to be crazy. Right. So I got the speakers, that album, and I got some kind of bizarre compilation. And It's My Thing was on that compilation.
It's my
Right.
thing.
So the whole compilation was trash. I can't tell you anything other thing that was on there. But let me tell you, when I put on I was like, oh my Lord.
Exactly.
It's a world premiere. I was like,
Yes.
oh, what has happened? And I followed them from that day forward. Like,
Me too. Me too. Someone,
MD.
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just, dude, I'm just having a flashback with you. That's it.
Yeah. So someone DM'd me last week the new track that Hit Boy did with Nas and EPMD, and they sent it to me. They DM'd it to me and like, what do you think? And it was just like a clip from the video of Nas, and I was
Yeah.
like, I'm hype. And they're like, I haven't
Yeah.
liked Nas since Illmatic. I was like, I'm hype for EPMD. Like, that's just it, man. Like,
I'm not even here for Nas yet.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
even here for Nas yet. He just got a Grammy. We're good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Wow. Dude, you are taking me back, man. EPMD. Listen, to all the young people out there, if you ever really need to understand how flow works,
Yeah.
dudes, it's crazy.
Yeah. And no one had really embraced funk in hip hop like that. And that's what it
Not
was.
till Dre. Not till Dre, I feel like,
Not
right?
at the time, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that's still, and then dude, when So What You Saying came out, like the second record, like I was
Oh my God. And
That
everybody
song-
blows it on that second album in hip hop,
Yeah,
right?
but
That
they-
sophomore slump is so real, but they just came through punching you straight in the jaw. Like, oh, you thought we didn't know what we were doing?
So What You
It was-
Saying, the importance of a year, we're back to work. I took time off while other rappers got jerked. I mean,
Oh my
it's
gosh.
crazy, man. It's crazy.
3 weeks later, the LP went gold. So what you
Yes.
saying?
Yes. And that beat, that guitar, that funky little guitar. Oh my God. Yeah. So
So crazy.
that was my introduction to hip hop. And then I was just done. And I can trace it like act to act, record
Yeah.
to record till today.
Dude, that's so crazy. I love EPMD, man.
Me too.
I love their shows. I love everything about their style. You know what I'm saying? Their lyricism.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I was heartbroken when they broke up.
I
And
know.
I loved that Fife would always rap about how much he loved EPMD.
Yeah, I remember there was a song by Jedi Mind Tricks. I forget which one. What Vinny Paz was like, we need EPMD to drop more hits.
Yes.
And I was like, see, come on, man. Vinny Paz, he's so hard.
yeah,
Good work.
dude, that Violent by Design record,
Oh my
that
gosh.
fucked me up when I first heard that. And Visions of Gandhi rocked me.
There's
hard.
too many. Like, he is probably, for me, I think Vinny Paz is one of the most underrated rappers
No doubt.
in recent history.
No
Like,
doubt.
and I think Stoop is one of the most underrated producers.
Oh, dude, Stoop is crazy. Stoop, that's what I loved about Jedi Mind Tricks was he was like sampling multicultural music. There was like
oh my
there were
God.
like
how
Middle Eastern chants and Spanish
over an
guitar
orchestra with hip hop drum.
with gangster ass Vinny Paz. Like I couldn't. Stoop could do no wrong. And when Vinny started making Jedi Mind Tricks albums without Stoop is when I stopped.
Hey, you know what? It was hard because you knew what to expect, and respect to all the dudes who try to rock with Vin, but like that sound was never replicated. It just wasn't.
I agree. But that's what I loved about Visions of Gandhi. I think that's Duke at his best. Like,
come on, man.
Yeah.
This is so crazy. And it's crazy because I just talked with this dude who I'm gonna have on the show, and he's got this whole hip hop orchestra thing in London. And his name is Giorgio, and like he's like a young orchestra dude whose whole background is in like Beethoven and everything, but he loves hip hop. And so I'm gonna have him come on the show, and we were talking about Stoop yesterday because I was like, no way this guy knows about Stoop. He totally knew what it was. So yeah, dude. So like, dude, okay, so hold on, we got to jump into this comic thing because I need to get from you.
Okay.
Like, and I'm coming to you on bended knee as someone who is not like, as much as you know about hip hop, I know nothing about comics. Like, I'm coming in as just like a Yojimbo fan who also will periodically sprout off into, you know what I mean? 1 or 2 episodes or whatever. Right. So I kind of want to get a sense of you, like, when you look at the landscape now, like, you know, the DC and Marvel movies have totally kind of stepped forward and become this whole thing where because of technology, a lot of the stuff that you could only imagine in the comic space on paper is now happening, you know what I mean, in these amazing, you know, these amazing technologies now.
Right.
Like, but at the same time, you know, when I speak to the people who I know that love the comic space and are in the comic space, I always see the tug of war between what's in the actual comic culture and what's on the screen, right? Like how far away are those worlds, and is it good for the culture or is it just good for the box office?
All right, so I could go into this. So a few things. Is it good for the culture? Yes. If we think of the culture, if you're talking about Marvel and DC, we're talking about superhero culture, not just print medium comics.
Right.
Did the movies, the print industry of superhero comics is suffering and has been suffering for a long time, and it's a self-inflicted wound.
Self-inflicted, that sounds controversial.
So the comics industry is built in America on this on the success of the superhero books. And it's built on, and the industry itself is built around this idea of it's called direct distribution. You have one distributor of comic books for all comic book shops.
Right.
So it's a bit of a monopoly. In the late 80s, comics gained a lot of popularity with collectors because people who had like Spider-Man #1 when they were kids were now older, and if they had saved it and happened to take care of it, which was really rare, it was worth a shit ton of money. So
True.
Collectors now were like, oh, comics are like gold. So they came in and started buying books, and then the publishers responded by overproducing. So, and they produced, this is the era of the foil covers, all the variant covers,
right.
And the artists had center stage, and the writers, the stories took a back seat to flashy imagery. So what made comics great, the stories and the art, like harmonizing, had fell out of balance. And they had overproduced a bunch of uninteresting books that looked cool. And the industry collapsed once everyone realized all these comics they were buying as investments would be worth nothing because there was 50,000 copies of them everywhere.
Too many. Yeah, there was just too many.
So the industry collapsed on itself. And this is when I was trying to break in. And it was at a time where like veterans were out of work.
So how hard was that for you, and what gave you the fortitude to stay? Because a lot of people just would have been like, I'm out.
Right. It was really, really hard for me. It was hard for me for a few reasons. The market was tiny, jobs were not available, and I was coming in with a graffiti influenced style, which was losing popularity. And I was cartoony at a time when, and this is when Marvel made a decision that they wanted their books to look real.
Interesting.
Like real people. They wanted their world to look like a real world. This is what led up to the movies.
Right.
So anyone coming in at this point had a tough road ahead of them. Anyone coming in at this point with my style had an even harder road ahead of them.
So how did you maintain?
It was, for me, because I'm still struggling. For me, it's why I'm here. It's my calling. It's what I do. If I don't do it, I don't feel I have a role in this planet. Like it's what I'm here to do. So
right. It's your niche. It's who you are. It's your
right. It was never a question of what else should I do. It was just like, this is what I'm going to do. And it gave me a lot of heartache, gave me a lot of stress, but I just kept at it because I don't know if I'm stubborn or stupid, but I just kept at it because it was
Dude,
what I
it's
wanted
funny,
to do.
dude. That's
And
the same
people, if
way.
you tell me no, I don't believe you. Like
Yeah,
I never believed no. I believed like, there's a way.
it's
There's a
crazy. I feel
way.
the
And at
same way
times
about all
that
this
bites
hip
me in
hop
the ass.
chess shit. You know what I mean? And the
Yeah,
jujitsu shit. Like I can't let go of it. It's not even an
exactly.
issue of
Exactly.
like, oh, you're still trying to do that. It's like, no, I'm not still trying to do it. I'm actually doing it on hella
Right.
levels. But
This is who I
you know
am.
what I'm
This is
saying?
what I
Like
do.
I'm never gonna not do it. Like no matter what happens, I'm never gonna not do it. You know?
Right, right, exactly. And I mean, I'm a dreamer, I'm a fool, I'm an artist. Like, and when I sit down and do it, I have no doubts. This is what I'm here to do. So it was hard, but uh, I never, I never entertained the idea of, I mean, I did teach, I
Right.
did work in animation, I did all of these other things to survive while
Right.
I never stopped pursuing comics.
Bro. So
So,
I'm going through my phone right now because I'm trying to. There's so many people that I want you to meet. I think I've talked to you about Hannibal Taboo before. He's a black comic dude out of LA, and then there's Carmelita Sanchez Ramirez, who does a lot of stuff with the Boyle Heights Art Conservatory in LA. And there's my boy Alan up in Canada who does, he's got his own comics that he's been dropping lately. And so I'm starting to be surrounded by people who are really in it
right.
and have been in it for a while.
Uh-huh.
And so when I and I can't draw at all, and so I'm always interested in comics, and I'm starting to find myself more and more kind of like drawn in. So when you look at the landscape right now, what excites you?
What excites me about the medium right now, so I was talking about how comics is going through a self-inflicted wound.
Mhm.
Marvel and DC as publishers are struggling right now. They're dying. And it's understandable. They haven't put out good books. They've just they're just vomiting the same ideas out over and over, and then they just started so the artists destroyed the industry back then. I talked about that. But then they ushered in the way for the writer. And early on, comics got really good again. You had really good writers and really good artists making really good books. And then social media kind of hit and social justice stuff started happening, and writers were being hired. And this also when the movies started to hit. So people wanted to get into comics now as a writer, whereas they'd never thought about it before.
So they didn't
So
understand the universes. They didn't necessarily care. Is this
more
is this
so they
kind of
didn't
like
understand the medium, I think, is the bigger
Mm,
issue. And yeah, they didn't understand the universes, they didn't understand the readership, but um the publishers became more concerned with, are you a brand on social media and will that help sell our books? Beyond that, like, you can write a awful script, it doesn't matter. And then what happened for artists like me was I was like the cleanup crew. It's like, here's a script, draw it. And I'd read it. And I was like, this doesn't even work. Like,
right? Yeah,
it's a
this isn't what it needs
mess.
to be at
So
all.
my
Right.
job, which used to be as artist and storyteller, now became a fix-it man on top of the artist storyteller. So I went from drawing books where I felt like a director, like really telling a story, to now, because of deadlines, my time was just eaten up by making it work, just making it legible.
You were kind of like a teacher who's got a noisy class, so you can't really teach until you get everybody quiet. So that
Exactly.
was what you had to do. Wow.
Exactly. So I lost a lot of joy in the act of it. And I went on to see these writers go on to major financial
hmm
and all sorts of different successes while I'm struggling. And it's like, this is backwards. And I got real kind of burnt and bent on the business and was like, I need to do comics my way, because
Right.
this is not going, and it's still in that direction. I mean, I was just involved with something with DC, and I mean, the story was just terrible. like
Right.
the idea. I was like, this is the problem. How do you think this is
Right.
going to be interesting to anyone?
Right.
So right now, I think comics is creatively more fruitful than I've ever seen it. It's the most creatively healthy industry it's ever been. It's in
Right.
it's in a transitional phase. So it used to not be so creatively healthy because if you weren't writing or drawing for Marvel and DC like a superhero comic, your chances of making a living were slim to none. There were some great comics being produced in the indie world, and other publishers found their niche like Dark Horse and
Mm-hmm.
Boom and
Mm-hmm.
Valiant. But now it seems like it's a time where the audience is more accepting of anything happening in a comic book, any genre.
It's interesting where it was like
It was
Superman
superhero,
would never do that. Like
right?
we
So
know
like
that, yeah.
the movies didn't bring in new readers. The movies didn't at all. So it's not like these movies came out and all of a sudden Marvel comics
That
was doing
seems
really
so
well.
weird to me. In my head, that had to be a given, but it is not a given.
No, it's not. And I'll tell you, the movies are kicking ass, and the comics are just throwaway material for the most part.
So because it's hitting me, and I'm afraid. The only reason I'm interrupting is because I'm afraid I won't ask if I don't do it. So they had this whole thing with Ta-Nehisi Coates where he wrote some stuff with the Red Skull, kind of who's kind of aligned with like a Nazi-esque character, right? And Captain America, and he was saying all this stuff that kind of echoed a lot of Jordan Peterson's work. For people that don't know, Jordan Peterson is kind of he's a Canadian scholar who he's trying to help men be men, but a lot of people find his stuff to have bigoted stuff in it. And it's weird because I was a big fan of some of his early work, to be honest. Then I started seeing him talk about culture and I was like, ooh, right. and so like I was a legit fan. Like I was getting ready to buy, he had some several week course you could take online. I was about to take that course. And then I started seeing some of the stuff he was saying and I was like, I can't rock with you. You're so far away, but you seem so smart. And so, recently I've seen some people talking about how Ta-Nehisi Coates stuff that deals with the Red Skull echoes a lot of the anti-feminist stuff of Jordan Peterson. And I see some of, this, it feels like a wave of social justice is about to like play itself out in these superheroes. What do you think about that? Is that good or bad? Like, are we making superheroes too real?
Yeah, well,
I like the fantasy idea of a lot of these people. The reason I love cartoons is because it's the only place you can hit somebody in the head with an anvil and they're okay.
Right,
so I enjoy that.
Right.
So I don't necessarily expect to get and I'm not saying that what's happening in the comic book is the wrong thing, but I'm saying are we making them too real, or is that what needs to happen?
It's a good question, and it's something that's been sort of plaguing the industry. So my good friend Axel Alonso used to be the editor-in-chief at Marvel, and Axel's half Mexican, and his initiative, he is also a huge hip-hop fan. So the Marvel hip-hop variants was his idea based on a conversation him and I had. And so he was really into this idea of expanding the culture of comics through Marvel, and he was ultimately fired, and they cited that as the reason. I mean, he created like he's the one who brought Ta-Nehisi into Marvel. He created like Miles Morales was his idea way back then, and when he created it, everyone was like, this is horrible, this is stupid, and now all those same people are celebrating it.
It's always that way with the pioneers, right? Just they take it on the chin like so heavily. It's
so, and he created a Korean Hulk because his wife is Korean, and his little nephew, when he saw what they were doing with the Hulk. Like his little nephew got so excited that he could see himself in the Hulk, and then he got scared because he thought he was going to turn into a Hulk.
Wow.
So this all I think was healthy stuff, and Axel was bringing in like really smart and talented writers and artists to do this stuff. But then I don't. He's a supremely intelligent human being,
Clearly.
but then the people that went along with it were not, and it just became like, oh, you're Muslim, you're popular on social media, and you want to write comics. Here's a job. And
Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
Right. So then that's when the backlash started happening. I mean, you've got the old guard of comic book readers who just want superheroes to be like they were in the 70s, and they were not happy at the diversity that was coming in. And then the books were terrible, and this is where we are now. Marvel and DC are not putting out like what their brand, they're not on brand right now in a lot of their books. It's more like, well, we need a trans hero so that audience can buy that,
can identify with this hero. Yeah.
Right, but they're not making good stories. So what
And that's not enough, right? Like it's not enough for this particular superhero to be trans or whatever, right? Like, yeah, that's such a deep thing, man, because is that like bigotry in the system, turning a blind eye to what could really be? Or sometimes I wonder, are these things that happen when the culture and the industry just haven't caught up yet in terms of skill and ideas?
Yeah.
Like, is it premature? You know what I mean? Are we taking it out of the oven too soon? But it's not that the bread's bad. We're just taking it out too early.
Right. I think it's all stuff that should be explored, definitely. But, Marvel, I think getting back to what you said, and I think this is right, is superhero books used to be fun. And now it's like, and they used to be like crazy and imaginative and ludicrous.
Right.
And now with the movies, it's got to be real. It's got to have a social message, and it's so based in reality that madness of it is gone, and that's what makes it beautiful. That's what makes a comic book work. Like when you now movies can make anything look real.
Anything.
So comics should be going farther.
Yeah.
Not away from.
I totally agree.
So, yeah, that I think is a big thing. I mean, the magic is gone. And the craft, the medium suffers because like you could have someone who's a skilled veteran comic book superhero storyteller, and they're making this new, just let's say a Filipino superhero.
Right.
But if the artist isn't Filipino, they're not going to put them on the book. So,
I struggle with a lot of that stuff too, right? Like even this isn't a comic book story, but it's just in the hip hop and in the black film world. They had that that Black Messiah movie, right? And so I know the guy who was the main actor is like a Black British person, and there were African Americans who were like, oh, he shouldn't have done that, and I'm just like, who cares? He killed it. Why would you, you know what I'm saying?
Actor,
and it's like, he can't identify. You don't know what he can identify with. First of all, you have no idea what he can identify with. And he murked the role. So why are we, you know what I mean? Like, and so like that stuff.
If he can identify, as long as the story gave you the impression he could.
And if the artist isn't Filipino, but they draw beautiful, dynamic, explosive, artistic, you know what I mean? Like, it starts to get weird quick. Now, a quick thing, because me and my friend Alan, we were talking the other day, and he was asking me about the Black Panther franchise, and like, should the actor be replaced? Should the actor not? What does that do for the culture? What does that do for the potential outreach of what Black Panther could be after Chadwick Boseman? And I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like I don't know. But then one thing he mentioned was, the Black Panther of the film is not the Black Panther of the comic.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
and I got a sense that he, who is not black, was hurt by that a bit. You know what I mean? As a real comic book person. And
Yeah.
so, what are your thoughts on what could or should be the future of the Black Panther,
Well, I'll say, let me start by
films at
saying
least?
this. I'm not a continuity comic nerd. I didn't grow up steeped in comics. I love the
Mm,
comics, but I'm also like not sold to the idea of where things started and people feel they should stay.
right.
I love I mean, like I said, that my first experience to comics was like this blasphemous idea of a retired Batman. And I loved it. And that's what I loved about it, because I'm a child of counterculture, punk
Mhm,
rock, hip hop,
mhm.
metal,
Me too.
comic books, graffiti. So,
Uh,
within comics, if you can be counterculture to a counterculture, what was a counterculture thing,
right.
I'm doubling down and going in.
So
So, I mean, if comics has taught me one thing, it's that every character can change in any way. So I don't care what they do with the Black Panther as long as it's interesting, as long as it's good. I mean, there's theories
yeah,
that his sister could become the next Black
right.
Panther. Do you just replace the actor and keep that character alive? I don't know. I mean, Chadwick Boseman did an amazing job playing that role.
Yeah,
Why do we need to keep that character the same? You've
right.
established the universe already. There's
Right.
other people that can step up and take the mantle, and maybe that's the direction the story goes in. Who's the Black Panther? Who's worthy of the Black Panther?
Right.
You know,
Yeah, that's super deep. Yeah, that's super deep.
and that's what comics would traditionally do in this sort of situation.
What do you when you look at, okay, now we're going to pivot a little bit into the technology piece of it.
Okay.
Like, you've been doing some NFT type stuff,
Yep.
and so here's my cliff noted Bitcoin story.
Okay. Go ahead.
In the early days of Bitcoin, and I mean early, I got like $5,000 in Bitcoin.
Uh-huh.
And I was afraid because everybody was saying, like, it's new money, the government's going to be taxing crazy. You can get snatched.
No.
And I'm black. So I'm like, yo, they're coming for me. You know what I'm saying? They're coming for me. So I got out so early.
Oh no,
Like, dude, if I would have held it, I'd be like talking to you from the Bahamas.
Oh, dude.
Oh,
can
you know what?
imagine.
Like, I actually, right before this show, I almost tried to calculate what I would have had, now. And I didn't do it just out of,
What year was this?
it would have been like 2009.
Oh, dude, you'd be fucking set.
No, I don't.
Oh my
So
God.
just put that in your phone. Put, if I had 5,000 in Bitcoin in 2009, how much would it be right now?
Oh my God. Yeah. Figure
So
that
that
one out.
so tell people who don't still understand, what is an NFT, why does it matter, and how is this good for artists?
Okay. So I don't really understand it. I'll start off by saying that. I mean, me and Mike Realm, who you talked about earlier, we're all of our NFT. We're doing a lot of NFT stuff together now. And I don't know that we truly understand it. NFT stands for non-fungible token. And it's basically, so in the comic world, if you draw a page, like when I work on Batman, I draw a page of Batman and I use pencil, paper, pen, brush, and ink. I have an original piece of artwork when I'm done. I am allowed to sell that, and it's all my money because I'm not reproducing anything. It's an original piece of artwork. Now, when the technology came out to create comics digitally, which offered people—
Hold on a second, my friend.
Go ahead.
$1,000 invested in Bitcoin in 2010.
Yeah.
287.5 million.
Oh my God. And how much did you have?
I had 5,000.
Jesus Christ, man. That's heartbreaking. Let's just have a moment of silence right now. Oh my God, dude. That's awful.
Oh, that's a true story, bro.
Yeah.
I remember taking the money out of the bank. I remember having my little wallet, my Bitcoin wallet, and like sending it over because I was like, I don't know, I don't want to get snatched by the FBI. That was my whole thing.
Right. Oh, that's fucking brutal, dude. Oh man.
Okay, we got to move on.
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard. That's really hard.
Let's go. Where were we, bro? Where were we?
I don't know. That
Tell
just
me something, man. Tell me something.
That fucked me up.
NFTs.
Right, NFTs. So all right, back to that. So when the technology came along and people realized they could make comics on their computer, and because there was software out for it, it would speed up their process.
Word.
Artists had a conversation. Do I switch to digital because I'll be faster? And if I'm faster, I can take on more work and I'll make more money. But I lose the ability to sell the original art, which is a secondary market.
Right.
So I was one of the people who was like, I'm going to learn how to do it on the computer, but I'm not going to stop making comics traditionally. So I took about a year and did all digital and then went right back to all traditional.
Oh, wow. What programs did you study for those that are curious?
At the time it was called Manga Studio and now it's called Clip Studio Paint. It's really, I found the most intuitive software for making comics.
Wow.
And what I liked about it was I knew Photoshop because comics had been colored using Photoshop for a long time. So I knew Photoshop, and Manga Studio used a Photoshop interface. It looked the same and acted the same. Tools were the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember one day I bought it and I started in the morning. I was like, I'm going to draw this issue digitally and I'm going to start today. And I finished my first page in like 4 hours, whereas normally it was like 10 hours.
Wow.
And the transition was that easy. And that was day one. So it got faster, but ultimately I didn't enjoy drawing on a computer and drawing on glass. Like, even though the technology is mind blowing, that point of your stylus isn't the thing making the mark.
It's still, yeah.
It's the computer reading that point and simulating a mark.
It's so deep that you say that, because not nearly as cool as a writer, right? And as a journalist, like, there's still something to me putting a physical pen on the paper.
Yes.
There's still something to me picking a book up and highlighting it. You know what I mean? Like, I like this section, and you know what I mean? It's so weird, man. I totally understand what you're saying.
So what NFTs offer is, so the technology of the NFT is they figured out a way to encode every pixel of a piece of artwork so that your digital creation is an original piece. So that even though people might have JPEGs of that page, there's only one certified original. And so it offers digital artists the ability to return to that secondary market in comics, or primary market outside of comics, of selling your artwork. Well, digital artists,
that is so beautiful.
Right. So digital artists used to have to sell prints. Now, prints are generally a lot cheaper than an original.
Of course.
But now they can make prints and sell an original. And so that's really big. That's really big. And so they popped up very quickly. And I remember Mike and I were kind of like on the page with talking about it. And like, we jumped on very early, and we're still like not fully off the ground with it yet. It's moving so fast and changing so much that like we've had projects ready to launch, and then like the next day we couldn't launch it.
That's crazy. Well, stay on it because you don't want to make my Bitcoin mistake. You understand me?
No. That's
All
what
right?
I'm doing now.
Oh my God, my heart is still. I'm picking it up off the floor.
Yeah. So I mean, I saw friends of mine, like a friend of mine had a Batman cover he drew.
Mhm.
And my art dealer had been trying to sell that cover for a little while for probably $1,500.
Right.
And they made an NFT of it, animated Batman's cape flapping in the wind. He sold it for 30 grand. So
I love that.
like my art dealer's like, I'm getting 2 to 3 times as much on
I love
NFT.
that.
And what he's doing, which is smart, is with the purchase of the NFT, you're getting that original piece of artwork in the mail too. So the NFT for him is a marketing tool for selling the original art.
Dude, I think that's amazing. Like I was already into it, but I'm totally into it now.
Right, but now get this, Marvel and DC have shut down anyone's ability to sell NFTs
What do you mean?
of their characters. That's what I mean.
Shut your mouth.
Yeah, so Mike and I had made these NFTs of, I did a painting of the Hulk, I did a painting of Spider-Man, and they were dope ass paintings. Mike animated them, put sound to them, and with these little movies, and no one had done that with, like, this is right before Marvel and DC shut it down. No one had done the sound and animation like this yet. So my art dealer was like, we're gonna make like 100 grand on each of these. And for someone who's still struggling like me, I was like, holy shit.
Come on, bro.
For the first time in my life, I'm gonna have a nest.
I'm about to, right.
And then Marvel and DC came out and shut it down, so we couldn't release them, and it killed me. So, well, Marvel did it first, so then I was like, fuck, all right, I started a Batman
drop this DC, right,
and then as I was finishing that, DC shut it down. So now Mike and I are just doing original content,
dude,
which is great for me, because I'm getting back to my roots as an artist in a lot of ways, and I'm really enjoying that. But it took a lot for me because I didn't feel like,
dude,
people would want something I drew that wasn't something licensed that they were familiar with, which was not a healthy mindset to have.
Nah, and it there's always this issue of, whether you're doing, art like you do, or whether you're doing writing like I do, where you just question its value.
Right.
There's a part of you that, I mean, like for me, like, do I believe that I'm a dope writer? Of course. But I also think that I can't stop writing. So, like, even if you think I suck, I can't stop. So,
right. That's exactly how I feel too.
You know what I mean? So it's crazy, man. I'm so glad you came on Bishop Chronicles today, man. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, I've had a blast.
Remind people how they can get a hold of you, and show me what you've been drawing over there this whole time.
Oh, all right. So I'm working on a series of NFTs, paintings. I'm gonna do paintings, and they're a celebration. Each piece is a celebration of one hip hop album. Okay. And the subject matter of all of them is going to be like a beautiful woman and psychedelic imagery like mushrooms.
Yeah.
So this one.
Wow.
So wow. This one is Ill Communication by the Beastie Boys. And I'll show you the sketch for this one, which I call Peaches.
Ooh, that's fresh.
Outcast Southern Playalistic album.
Wow.
So that'll be next. So
dude,
on now.
That's lit.
Thank you.
That's lit.
Thank you.
Well, yo, man, thank you for sharing your art and your path and your journey. Thank you for all your contributions to the comic culture, the hip hop culture. Like, this stuff is a big deal, man. And I'm so glad that I got to sit with you on the show. I'm definitely gonna have you back after my book drops. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah.
A lot of stuff. We've got to talk about that. But
sure.
You know what I'm saying? Remind people how they can get a hold of you before you dip out, man.
All right. So on all social media, I'm at Inkpulp. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I got a Facebook page. I'm on TikTok now. And I also have a YouTube channel where my podcast is, which Adisa was on.
Yeah.
And I also have a new thing I launched, which I just need to talk about real quick, called Inkpulp Instruction, which is at inkpulpinstruction.com. And this is my new business where I'm creating what I call them episodes, but they're videos that teach you how to draw comics, all different aspects of comic
Yeah.
art and art itself. But each episode, I mean, there's a bunch with me doing it, but I have the majority of them are and will be with like the best comic talent in the world, where you're going to watch them create a piece from beginning to end. And the whole time I'm asking them questions. So it's like inviting a developing artist or even a seasoned artist into the mind of these brilliant artists and
Dude.
learning from it. So that's my new venture. I mean, COVID wiped out publishing. We didn't even talk about that. And that was what I put
know.
together because I was like, if Marvel and DC, because I was already fading away from them before COVID, and if freelance work, which I was kind of not feeling anyway, is going away, I need to figure out
Where you're headed.
I had to become like an artist entrepreneur now. Like I am my own business. How am I going to sell
Yep.
shit? And so that was one of the early ideas I had. And
Dude, that's fantastic.
Thank you. We release a new episode every other month. I've got all of 2021 shot and ready to be released, and I'm starting to shoot for 2022.
That's fantastic, bro.
Thanks.
Well, man, just stay strong with it. Once COVID's over, I'm definitely coming down. We're going to kick it proper. You got to come to Cali and we'll figure it out, man.
For sure.
You know what I'm
For
saying?
sure.
Much
For
respect, Shawn. Thanks for being on Bishop Chronicles.
Thank you for having me.
Follow this dude. Study this dude. He knows what he's talking about. This is beautiful stuff, and this is what we try to bring you. We'll see you next time. Worldwide West Side. You know how we do. All right now. Peace.
Peace.
Teacher, what star's that? It's my own secret technique.
Bishop Chronicles.
Bishop Chronicles. What's it called?
Checkmate, sucker, now the move game's over.
What's it called?
Adisa and